Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that's often overlooked but incredibly important. The forgotten war heroes and unsung figures who changed history but never got the recognition they deserved. These are the people whose bravery, sacrifice, and contributions were overshadowed by time or circumstance. Let's shine a light on their stories today. Let's start with an incredible woman from World War I. Number 1. Virginia Hall. You may not recognize her name, but she was one of the most important spies of the war. Despite losing her leg in a hunting accident, Virginia went on to join the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, and played a critical role in the resistance movements in Nazi-occupied France. The Nazis gave her the codename, the Limping Lady, but they had no idea just how dangerous she was. She was so effective that they put a bounty on her head, but she never got the recognition she deserved after the war. Number 2. Frances Piegamagabow. Now let's talk about the Battle of Hill 70 during World War I. You might have heard of the Western Front, but this battle doesn't get enough attention, even though it was a major victory for the Canadian forces. Frances Piegamagabow, an Indigenous soldier, was one of the most decorated soldiers in Canadian military history, but his name often gets forgotten. He single-handedly took down multiple enemies, and despite his incredible skill, he never sought fame or glory. And after the war, he returned home to live quietly, but his legacy is a story of resilience that should be known. Number 3. Then there's Doris Miller, a U.S. Navy cook during the attack on Pearl Harbor. When the Japanese planes came in and chaos erupted, Miller didn't just hide or freeze. Instead, he grabbed a .50 caliber machine gun and started shooting back, even though he had never been trained on it. His actions earned him the Navy Cross, but until recently, he was largely forgotten in mainstream accounts of the attack. Doris Miller is a symbol of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Number 4. William Billy Singh, an Australian sniper during World War I. He is credited with over 150 confirmed kills, a number that earned him a reputation as one of the deadliest snipers of the war. But while he was celebrated in some circles, he was largely forgotten in the wider narrative, even though his impact on the battlefield was immense. The fact that he was an Australian of Chinese descent also made his story even more remarkable, considering the racial prejudices he faced at the time. Number 5. Audie Murphy, the most decorated soldier in U.S. history, but almost forgotten. Audie Murphy was a young farm boy from Texas who, despite being initially rejected for military service due to his size, went on to become one of the most decorated soldiers in U.S. history. His bravery during World War II earned him every major combat award, including the Medal of Honor. Murphy single-handedly held off an entire German unit during the Battle of the Colmar Pocket in France. He climbed atop a burning tank destroyer and used its .50 caliber machine gun to defend his comrades, even though he was wounded multiple times. After the war, Murphy struggled with PTSD, then known as shell shock, and his efforts to raise awareness of mental health issues were largely overshadowed by his fame. He also went on to have a successful career in Hollywood, where he portrayed himself in the film adaptation of his autobiography, To Hell and Back. Number 6. Ben Spock, pediatrician turned war hero. Dr. Benjamin Spock is primarily known for his influential baby and child care book, which shaped child rearing practices in the 20th century. However, few know about his military service during World War II. Before becoming the world-renowned pediatrician, Spock served as a commander in the U.S. Navy during World War II. He played a role in developing and improving naval health protocols and served as a psychiatrist for sailors suffering from combat stress. His compassion for soldiers dealing with trauma was ahead of its time. Despite his achievements as a doctor and his work during the war, Spock became better known for his advocacy on social issues, such as his outspoken opposition to the Vietnam War. His military service and medical contributions during the war were often overshadowed by his later fame. Number 7. Simo Häyhä, the White Death, Finland's unsung sniper. Simo Häyhä, a Finnish sniper during the Winter War, 1939 to 1940, between Finland and the Soviet Union, is one of the deadliest snipers in history, with over 500 confirmed kills. Häyhä was incredibly skilled at taking down Soviet soldiers without revealing his position, using a simple bolt-action rifle. He was known for his remarkable ability to stay hidden in the snowy Finnish wilderness, often relying on natural camouflage and his knowledge of the terrain. He was eventually shot in the face but survived and lived to tell this tale. Despite his legendary status in Finland, Häyhä's story is largely unknown outside of his home country, and his actions during the war were often downplayed in favor of other, more widely celebrated figures from the conflict. Number 8. Nancy Wake, the White Mouse, World War II resistance leader. Nancy Wake was a New Zealand-born Australian who became one of the most decorated women of World War II. She served as a resistance fighter in Nazi-occupied France, where her actions were instrumental in saving thousands of lives. Wake worked with the French resistance to sabotage German operations, gather intelligence, and help Allied soldiers escape. She was so successful that the Gestapo placed a bounty on her head, calling her the White Mouse. Despite being pursued by the Nazis, she continued her efforts until the end of the war. After the war, Wake's story was overshadowed by other famous war heroes, and she didn't receive the public recognition she deserved until much later in her life, even though she was highly decorated by the French, British, and U.S. governments. Number 9. Edward A. Carter, Jr., the forgotten hero of World War II. Edward A. Carter, Jr. was an African-American soldier who became one of the most decorated soldiers in World War II. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, and in 1993, President Bill Clinton posthumously awarded him the Medal of Honor. Carter served in the segregated U.S. Army and fought with incredible bravery in multiple battles, including the campaigns in North Africa, Italy, and France. His heroism included charging enemy positions and single-handedly taking out machine gun nests. However, his race led to his actions being overlooked for many years. Carter's story remained largely untold for decades, and his recognition as a hero came only after persistent efforts from his family and historians to highlight the incredible contribution he made during the war. Despite his achievements, his legacy was buried in the historical record for far too long. Number 10. Charles Chuck M. Province, the American soldier who saved countless lives in Vietnam. Chuck M. Province was a Green Beret during the Vietnam War, and his actions in battle were both heroic and strategic. During the Tet Offensive in 1968, Chuck's team was surrounded and vastly outnumbered. He single-handedly held off a Viet Cong assault for hours, even after being wounded. His team's survival and the lives of dozens of Vietnamese civilians were due to his actions. Province's story wasn't widely known, partly because he was a quiet and humble individual who didn't seek fame for his bravery. It wasn't until after his death that his heroism was fully recognized, when his story was uncovered by historians. Number 11. The Navajo Code Talkers, unsung heroes of World War II. The Navajo Code Talkers were a group of Native American soldiers who developed an unbreakable code based on the Navajo language during World War II. Their contributions were essential to Allied victories in the Pacific Theater. The Code Talkers communicated vital military messages that the Japanese were unable to decode. They were pivotal in major battles such as Iwo Jima, where their ability to relay messages quickly and securely helped ensure success. Despite their crucial role, the Code Talkers remained largely unknown for decades after the war due to national security restrictions. Their contributions were only publicly recognized in the 1960s, and many still don't realize just how much they shaped the course of the war. Number 12. The Tuskegee Airmen, America's first African-American fighter pilots. The Tuskegee Airmen were a group of African-American pilots and airmen who fought in World War II. Despite being initially relegated to segregated training programs, they proved themselves as some of the best fighter pilots in the U.S. Army Air Forces. The Tuskegee Airmen flew over 15,000 sorties and had an impressive record of protecting bombers, which saved countless lives. They also had one of the highest kill-to-loss ratios of any unit in the war. While their heroism was eventually acknowledged, for years, their contributions were overshadowed by racial prejudice. It wasn't until long after the war that their legacy began to be celebrated, and they remain relatively unknown compared to other military icons of the war. These unsung heroes and forgotten figures not only faced incredible personal challenges, but also impacted history in profound ways. They're often overshadowed by larger-than-life legends, but their stories deserve to be remembered, celebrated, and shared. If you've learned something new today, or if you have other unsung heroes you think we should know about, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and continue this conversation. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more history stories that deserve to be told. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.